My cousins laughed when I parked my dented sedan next to their luxury SUVs, loudly calling me the family failure in this family drama. They had no idea that the tech giant they bragged about working for was actually my company, and I was about to give them a performance review they would never forget and teach them about revenge and justice. The 2005 silver sedan shuddered violently as I shifted it into park. The engine gave a final wheezing rattle, a sound like a dying smoker coughing in a library, before falling silent. Heat radiated from the hood, distorting the air in shimmering waves. The air conditioning had died 3 years ago, and the late July sun was turning the interior into a convection oven. I wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead, checking my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair was pulled back in a simple, slightly frizzy ponytail, and I wore a faded sundress that had seen better decades. To anyone looking at me, I was Eliana Turner, the family disappointment, the cousin who drifted, the one who never seemed to get her footing in the corporate world. I stepped out of the car, my sandals crunching on the gravel of the expansive driveway. This was the annual Turner Cruise family reunion, held at the sprawling estate of our Aunt Lydia. The driveway was already a showroom of automotive vanity. There were gleaming black luxury SUVs, Italian sports cars low to the ground, and massive trucks that had never seen a speck of mud. And then, there was my car, a rusted, dented blemish on the pristine landscape. I loved that car. It had belonged to my father before he passed. He was a man who believed that utility and character mattered more than flash and veneer. He taught me that money was a tool, not a personality trait. It was a lesson I had taken to heart, even if my extended family had not. As I walked toward the backyard, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses grew louder. The smell of expensive charcoal and marinating steaks wafted through the air. "Oh, look! She actually made it!" The voice cut through the humidity like a serrated knife. I didn't need to look up to know it was Billy Cruz. I took a deep breath, centering myself. Billy was my cousin, 3 years my senior, and the self-proclaimed golden boy of the family. He stood by the massive stone patio, holding a craft beer in one hand and gesturing wildly with the other. He was wearing a polo shirt that probably cost more than my car's current Blue Book value, tucked into pastel shorts. "I thought that heap finally died on the highway, Eliana," Billy shouted, grinning as the other cousins around him chuckled. "I was about to place bets on whether you'd arrive in a tow truck." "Good to see you too, Billy," I said, keeping my voice even. I walked up the stone steps, forcing a polite smile. "Seriously, Eliana," Billy continued, stepping into my personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne and arrogance. "It's embarrassing. Look at that thing, it's leaking oil on Aunt Lydia's cobblestones. You know, most people upgrade their vehicle once a decade. It's a sign of competence." "It gets me from point A to point B," I replied, moving toward the cooler to grab a water. "Does it?" Billy laughed, turning to his audience, a group of 3 other cousins who worked in his division. "Or does it just drag the family reputation down with it? I mean, come on, Ellie, we're all worried about you. You're 30 years old. You're still driving a teenager's beater and doing... What is it you do again? Consulting?" He made air quotes with his fingers, his face twisted in a mock sympathetic sneer. "Something like that," I said quietly. "Right. Unemployed," Billy translated for the group. "Look, family is family. If you need a loan for a bus pass, just ask." The group erupted in laughter again. I tightened my grip on the water bottle but said nothing. I walked away, finding a quiet spot near the garden trellis. This was the dynamic. It had been this way since we were children. Billy was the loud achiever, the one who stepped on anyone to climb the ladder. I was the quiet observer. What Billy didn't know, what no one here knew, was that consulting was a very modest term for my reality. 5 years ago, I had developed a proprietary algorithmic infrastructure for cloud computing. I had patented it, leveraged it, and quietly acquired a controlling interest in a failing tech conglomerate called Nexus Dynamics. I had rebuilt the company from the ground up, rebranded it, and turned it into the market leader it was today. I was the majority shareholder and the CEO of the holding company that owned Nexus Dynamics. But I didn't run the day-to-day operations publicly. I used a proxy board. I preferred the shadows. It allowed me to see things clearly, to understand the market without the distortion of celebrity CEO status. However, recently I had decided to step out of the shadows. There were rumors of toxicity in the mid-level management, specifically in the sales and acquisition department. I had arranged a surprise inspection and board integration for Monday morning. Ironically, Billy Cruz was the regional director of sales for Nexus Dynamics. He worked for me. He just didn't know it yet. Don't let him get to you, Eliana. I turned to see Alexander Thomas approaching. Alexander was the antithesis of Billy. He was kind, soft-spoken, and wore a simple button-down shirt that was slightly wrinkled. He held a plate of appetizers and offered one to me. Thanks, Alex, I said, taking a stuffed mushroom. I'm used to it. Billy needs an audience to feel alive. Alexander sighed, leaning against the trellis next to me. He's been worse lately. The power has gone to his head. He keeps bragging about this promotion he thinks he's getting next week. Says he's going to be VP of Global Operations. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Yeah, Alexander said, looking down at his shoes. He's been riding everyone hard at the office. I mean, I'm just in logistics, so I don't report to him directly, but I hear stories. He fires people for looking at him wrong. He calls it trimming the fat. It's brutal. Alexander worked at Nexus too. He had applied under his own merit, refusing to use Billy's name to get ahead. He was a logistics coordinator, a role that required immense patience and organization. I had seen his file. His performance metrics were stellar, but he had been passed over for a raise 3 times in the last 2 years. How is your job going, Alex? I asked, probing gently. He shrugged, a tired smile touching his lips. It's a job. The pay is okay, but the culture is getting toxic. I'm thinking of leaving, honestly. Billy makes it hard for anyone with the last name Thomas or Cruz to be taken seriously unless they act like him, and I can't be like him. No, I said firmly, placing a hand on his arm. Don't leave yet. Give it a few days. Things change. Alexander looked at me, confused, but he didn't press. I just worry about you, Ellie. You know, with the car and everything. If you need help, I have some savings. It's not much, not like Billy's money, but I could help you with a down payment on something reliable. My chest tightened with genuine affection. Here was Alexander, struggling with the toxic environment my company had allowed to fester, offering me his hard-earned savings because he thought I was destitute. Keep your money, Alex, I said softly. I promise I'm doing better than I look. The car, it's a choice. It reminds me of Dad. Uncle Ben was a good man, Alexander nodded. Hey, rejects! Billy's voice boomed across the lawn again. Stop crying in the corner and come get some food. The adults are talking business. I looked at Alexander. Shall we? We probably should, he sighed, before he throws a steak at us. We walked back to the main patio. Billy was holding court at the head of the long outdoor table. He had commandeered the conversation, turning it into a monologue about his brilliance. So I walked into the meeting, Billy was saying, spraying crumbs as he spoke, and I told the client, look, you can either sign with Nexus and win, or you can go to the competition and file for bankruptcy in a year. I didn't give him a choice. That's how you close people. Fear. Fear is the greatest motivator. Isn't the product supposed to be the motivator? I asked, taking a seat at the far end of the table. The table went silent. Billy stared at me, blinking as if the furniture had suddenly spoken. Excuse me? Billy laughed incredulously. Did the consultant just try to give me business advice? I'm just asking, I said, my voice calm but carrying across the table. If the product is good, you shouldn't need to threaten clients with bankruptcy. Fear creates resentment. Resentment loses contracts in the long run. Billy slammed his beer down. The glass cracked slightly at the base. Listen to this, he sneered, gesturing to the family. Eliana, who drives a car that sounds like a lawnmower, is teaching me about high-stakes corporate sales. Eliana, let me explain something to you in simple words you can understand. In the real world, the world where we make millions, nice guys finish last. You're soft. That's why you're where you are. And that's why I'm driving a Porsche and running the biggest division in the state. Is that the company policy? I asked, locking eyes with him. Bullying? I am the policy, Billy declared, puffing out his chest. At the regional level, what I say goes. The board doesn't care how the sausage gets made as long as the numbers are up, and my numbers are legendary. I heard turnover in your department is 40%, I noted. I had read the HR reports 3 nights ago. Billy's eyes narrowed. Where did you hear that? People talk, I shrugged. Weak people quit, Billy spat. I cull the herd. Only the wolves survive in my department. If they can't handle the heat, I fire them. In fact, I fired a guy last week just because he wore a cheap suit. Bad optics. You represent the brand, you know? He looked pointedly at my dress. Honestly, Eliana, if you walked into my office looking like that, I'd have security escort you out before you could even ask for an application. Good to know, I said, taking a sip of iced tea. You should be taking notes, Billy scoffed. Maybe then you wouldn't be the family charity case. Alexander stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the stone. That's enough, Billy. Billy looked at Alexander with mock surprise. Oh? The logistics boy speaks? Sit down, Alex. Don't embarrass yourself. You're being cruel, Alexander said, his voice shaking slightly but holding firm. Eliana is family. You don't talk to people like that. I talk to people however I want, Billy said, leaning forward. Because I pay the bills. I paid for this catering, Alex. Did you? No. Eliana certainly didn't. So until you're bringing in 7 figures, you sit down and shut up. I reached up and gently pulled Alexander's sleeve. It's okay, Alex. Let him talk. It's illuminating. Illuminating? Billy laughed. You're delusional. You know what? I'm feeling generous. Monday morning. Come by the office. I'll have my assistant find something for you. We need someone to clean the break rooms. It pays minimum wage, but hey, it's a start. Better than consulting for imaginary clients. The table erupted in laughter again. Even some of the aunts and uncles were chuckling, seemingly swaying to the side of success and money, regardless of the cruelty attached to it. I stood up slowly. I didn't look angry. I didn't cry. I looked at Billy with a cold, clinical curiosity, like a scientist observing a particularly fascinating bacteria in a petri dish. Monday morning, I repeated. I'll be there, Billy, but I won't be cleaning the break rooms. Sure, sure. Billy waved his hand dismissively. Just park that scrap heap around the back. I don't want clients seeing it. I turned to Alexander. I'm leaving. Thank you for defending me. It means more than you know. I'll walk you out, Alexander said. As we walked to my car, the laughter from the patio followed us. I'm sorry about him, Alexander said. He's a monster. He's a liability, I corrected. I opened the door of my scorching hot sedan. Alex, do me a favor. On Monday, wear your best suit and bring your portfolio. Why? He asked, puzzled. I work in the warehouse office. Just trust me, I said. See you Monday. I started the engine. It rattled, choked, and finally caught. I reversed out, catching one last glimpse of Billy holding court, drunk on his own ego. Enjoy it, Billy, I thought. It's your last weekend as a king. Monday morning arrived with a gray drizzle, stripping the city of its color. The Nexus Dynamics headquarters was a towering monolith of glass and steel in the financial district. It was an imposing building designed to intimidate and impress. I did not drive the sedan. At 7:00 a.m., a black town car with tinted windows pulled into the private underground executive garage. My driver, a stoic man named Henry, opened the door. I stepped out. Gone was the frizzy ponytail and the faded sundress. My hair was straightened and sharp, resting against the shoulders of a bespoke charcoal Armani suit. My heels clicked with authority on the concrete. I carried nothing but a thin leather tablet case. Waiting for me by the elevator was Morgan, my chief legal counsel and interim operational liaison. She was a woman of terrifying efficiency, holding a stack of files. Good morning, Ms. Turner, Morgan said, falling into step beside me as we walked toward the private elevator that only serviced the top floor. Good morning, Morgan. Is everything prepared? Yes, ma'am. The board of directors has been assembled in the main conference room on the 40th floor. We issued the emergency review notice on Friday night as you requested. Mr. Cruz and his team are currently waiting in the boardroom. They are agitated. I imagine they are, I said, as the elevator doors slid shut. The ascent was smooth and silent. Does he know? No one knows, Morgan confirmed. The NDA regarding your ownership is ironclad. As far as Mr. Cruz knows, he is meeting with the elusive owner's representative to discuss his promotion. Excellent. We reached the 40th floor. The hallway was lined with modern art and hushed silence. We bypassed my office and went straight to the double mahogany doors of the boardroom. Morgan, I said, pausing with my hand on the brass handle. Bring Alexander Thomas up from logistics. Have him wait in the reception area. Already done, Ms. Turner. He arrived 10 minutes ago. He looks quite nervous. He'll be fine. I pushed the doors open. The conversation inside the room died instantly. The boardroom was massive. A long table of polished dark wood dominated the space, surrounded by 20 leather chairs. At the far end sat the current acting CEO, the CFO, and the members of the board. They all stood up immediately as I entered. Near the front, however, sat Billy Cruz. He was flanked by the three cousins from the barbecue, his inner circle. They were laughing about something, likely the previous night's escapades. Billy looked hungover. His tie was slightly loose, and he had the greasy sheen of someone who hadn't slept enough. When I walked in, Billy didn't stand. He glanced at me, then did a double take. He squinted. I walked to the head of the table. The chairman of the board, a gray-haired man named Sterling, whom I had specifically instructed to remain silent, stepped aside and pulled out the chair for me. I sat down. I placed my tablet on the table. I folded my hands. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Billy finally processed what he was seeing. He let out a confused, scoffing laugh. "Eliana?" he blurted out. The sound echoed awkwardly in the acoustic perfection of the room. "What the hell are you doing here?" He looked around at the board members. "Is this a joke? Who let her in? Security!" He turned to his cronies. "I told her she could clean the break rooms, and she wanders into a board meeting. Unbelievable." He looked back at me, his face reddening. "Eliana, get out. Now. Before I have you arrested for trespassing. You're embarrassing the family again." "Sit down, Mr. Cruz," I said. My voice was not loud, but it projected with a cold authority that froze the room. Billy blinked. "Excuse me?" I said, "Sit down." Morgan stepped forward from the shadows behind me. "Mr. Cruz, you are addressing Ms. Eliana Turner, the majority shareholder and owner of Nexus Dynamics. I suggest you show the appropriate respect." The color drained from Billy's face. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, agonizing fade. He looked from Morgan to the board members. They were all looking at me with deferential expectation. He looked back at me. That's impossible," he stammered. "She drives a 2005 Accord. She's a consultant." "I am," I said, leaning forward. "I consult on how to rescue companies from toxic middle management, and I own 51% of this building, Billy, including the chair you are sitting in." Billy slumped back into his chair. His mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. The three cousins beside him looked like they wanted to dissolve into the carpet. "Let's begin," I said, tapping the tablet. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the table, displaying a series of graphs and emails. "We are here to discuss the performance of the regional sales division," I began, "specifically the leadership." "Eliana, Ms. Turner," Billy started, his voice cracking. He tried to shift into his sales persona, a desperate smile plastering onto his face. "Look, I know we have our family banter, but you know my numbers. I'm the best you have. You are generating lawsuits," I cut him off. I swiped the screen. A list of HR complaints scrolled by. Sexual harassment, wrongful termination, embezzlement of client entertainment funds, and a turnover rate of 43%. That's just trimming the fat," Billy argued, sweat beading on his forehead. "You need wolves to run this market." "I don't need wolves, Billy. I need leaders. Wolves eat their own pack when they get hungry. And you have been feasting on your team." I swiped again. A video file appeared. It was security footage from the lobby, dated 3 months ago. It showed Billy berating a janitor for mopping the floor while he was walking, kicking the bucket over. "Is this how a vice president of global operations acts?" I asked. "I was having a bad day," Billy whispered. "No," I said. "You have a bad character. I saw it on Saturday. I experienced it. You mocked my car, my clothes, and my financial status. You offered me a job cleaning toilets as a power play to humiliate a family member. If you treat your own blood that way, I can only imagine how you treat my employees." I stood up. The room seemed to shrink around Billy. "True power isn't about driving a Porsche or shouting over people at a barbecue, Billy. True power is building something that lasts. It's about respect, and you have none." I looked at Morgan. "What is the severance package for a termination with cause?" "Zero, Ms. Turner," Morgan replied crisply. "Given the evidence of embezzlement regarding the client dinners that were actually personal vacations, we are also within our rights to pursue legal action for restitution." Billy stood up, knocking his chair over. You can't do this. I'm family. I made you money. You cost me reputation, I said. You're fired, Billy. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 5 minutes to clear your desk. Do not touch the computer. Your access was revoked 10 minutes ago. I looked at the 3 cousins beside him. The same goes for the 3 of you. You laughed at his jokes, you enabled his behavior, and your productivity reports are abysmal. You're all gone. Billy looked at me with pure hatred, but underneath it, there was terror. He realized the game was over. He didn't have a comeback. He didn't have a card to play. He turned and stormed out of the room, the cousins trailing behind him like lost puppies. The heavy doors swung shut. The silence returned, but this time it was cleaner. Morgan, I said, sitting back down. Send in Alexander Thomas. The doors opened again. Alexander walked in. He was wearing his best suit, a navy blue one that was a few years old but well maintained. He clutched a leather folder. He looked at the board members, then at me, his eyes widening in shock. Eliana, he whispered, you're sitting at the head of the table. Take a seat, Alex, I said, gesturing to the chair Billy had just vacated. He walked over slowly, looking at the nameplate on the table that read Eliana Turner, owner. He sat down gingerly. I don't understand, he said. I own the company, Alex, I said simply. I built it. He stared at me for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't greed, it was pride. You? The whole time? The consulting? The whole time. I opened a file on my screen. I've reviewed your file, Alexander. Your logistics reorganization plan from last year saved the company $1.2 million in shipping costs. Yet you received no bonus and no credit. Billy took credit for it, didn't he? Alexander looked down. I just wanted to help the company. That is exactly the kind of person I need running the sales division, I said. Alexander's head snapped up. What? I'm promoting you, interim vice president of sales and operations. You know the product, you know the logistics, and most importantly, you know how to treat people. I need you to clean up the culture, Alex. I need you to make this a place where people want to work again. Eliana, I don't know if I can, he stammered. That's a huge jump. You offered to give your savings to a cousin you thought was failing, just so she could have a reliable car, I said, my voice softening. You have integrity. I can teach you the strategy. I can't teach integrity. Do you accept? Alexander straightened his posture. He looked at the board, then at me. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Your salary will be tripled, effective today. And Alex? Yes? Get a new car. You represent the brand now. He laughed, a genuine sound of relief. Does this mean you're getting a new car too? I smiled. Maybe, but I think I'll keep the sedan for family reunions. It's a good litmus test. The aftermath was swift. Billy tried to badmouth me to the family, spinning a tale of betrayal and madness. But when the lawsuits for embezzlement hit him, the family went quiet. The evidence was undeniable. He had been stealing from the company to fund the lifestyle he used to mock me. I didn't attend the next Thanksgiving. I was busy expanding our operations into Europe. But I sent Alexander. He drove up in a modest, reliable company car, a brand new hybrid. He didn't brag, he didn't shout. He just brought good food and checked in on everyone. A few weeks after the firing, I took my 2005 sedan to a mechanic. You want to scrap it? The mechanic asked, wiping grease from his hands. No, I said, running my hand over the dented hood. Restore it. New engine, new AC, new interior. Keep the outside exactly as it is, dents and all. Why would you want to do that, lady? With what this will cost, you could buy a Benz. Because, I said, looking at the faded paint, this car reminds me that appearances are deceiving, and I never want to forget that the loudest engine is usually the one that's broken. I paid him in advance and walked out to the waiting town car. As I slid into the leather seat, I checked my phone. A message from Alexander. Sales up 15% this quarter. Morale is at an all-time high. Thanks, boss. I smiled and put the phone away. Justice, I found, was a dish best served with a side of hard work and a very, very old car.